Man, I hate this piece of junk. Is the last thing you want to be saying if you just bought a Corvette C6, man. The Corvette C6 is a wonderful car, but there's some issues with used Corvette C6s that you need to know about if you're going to be buying one. Luckily, you found the right video. Let's talk about it. I bought my Corvette C6 3 years ago, and just like you guys watching this video, I got on the internet, I started researching what are the common issues with the Corvette C6, what things should I be looking out for, and what mods can I do. I didn't want to buy a piece of junk, so I did the research, and now I'm going to give you all that information, man. Here's the thing, the Corvette C6, it has a few problems used that needs to be addressed. Luckily, the good thing about the Corvette C6 is there are no major issues, really. There's not big things, except the only major issue with the Corvette C6 is if you got a Z06 and you've got the LS7, you've got the valve drop issue. I'm sure you've heard about it, but if you're looking at an LS2, LS3, the engines overall are super solid, but there's some other small components that have a tendency to give some issues. I've researched on the forums, I've looked on the internet. Let's talk about those issues I found out. All right, and the first small issue on the Corvette C6 is going to be battery drainage, man. You know, several forums where guys leave their Corvette C6s in the garage for the winter and they come back to crank this bad boy up and it won't fire up because the battery's dead. Well, the electronics in the Corvette C6, they have a very small drain. And say you only crank up your Corvette for a couple minutes, you know, every other weekend just to try and, you know, run the gas through and all that, it's still not quite enough to charge that battery. So what a lot of guys and what I recommend is just throwing a battery tender on it. So if you've got a Corvette C6, it's got a little bit of slow battery drain because you don't drive this thing all the time, throw a battery tender on it, you'll be good to go. And another issue with the C6 Corvette that you probably have heard a lot of guys talk about as well is a cracked fitting on the fuel line on the driver's side tank that causes an evap leak, and you can actually smell fuel. So a lot of guys reported having the Corvette C6 parked in their garage, and they'd go in their garage and they would smell fuel. Well, that's what it is, man. So if you're buying a Corvette C6, ask them about that. Ask them if that fitting's been replaced on the fuel tank. Otherwise, you might have to replace it, and it's not a fun job. So that's another big issue for the Corvette C6 you need to watch out for. All right, and the next common issue with the Corvette C6 is going to be harmonic balancer wobble, man. If you guys have done some research and you thought about buying a C6 and putting a supercharger on it, you've definitely heard of guys telling you you've got to replace that harmonic balancer. But yeah, if you're going to look at a Corvette C6 LS2, LS3, check the harmonic balancer, make sure it's not wobbly. That damper goes bad and you need to replace it with something better, like an ATI harmonic balancer, or get something from Summit. But either way, those replacements will get you good to go. You can pin it then to the crank. So if you're going to run a supercharger, you're good to go. And even if you're not, it's still a good thing to do, man. That's another thing you need to do. Another thing you need to check out for is the harmonic balancer wobble on the C6 Corvette. Man, this one's a doozy, but another common issue you've got to watch out for on the Corvette C6 is on an automatic transmission, the shifter, it gets stuck in park. And there's a lot of issues with the bracket, with the assembly on that shifter assembly. And some guys say that you can press in the brake, push in the shifter and push it forward to get it unstuck. But this thing's a manual, so luckily I don't have to deal with that issue, but it is something you need to worry about. Ask them if that's been fixed because it could be a potential issue for you. All right, and the next thing on the Corvette C6 that a lot of Corvette owners have reported issues with are the rear wheel bearings. A lot of people said that they started driving, they started feeling this wobbling sound, and they started hearing this humming noise, and the wheel bearings are bad. I read that on a lot of forums. A lot of people report it, so that's another issue to be aware of whenever you're looking at a Corvette C6. And I think the next issue you got to think about with the Corvette C6, I found this on a lot of forums, and my Corvette even dealt with it, and that is a leaky power steering rack. You're going to have power steering fluid leaking from the high pressure hose. That's what most guys report, at least, and my car had the same thing. And the biggest annoyance about that is you actually have to drop the rack to do that repair. So I'm waiting to fix mine. Mine has a very small leak, very minimal. I noticed it whenever I was just doing a normal fluid check. It was a little low and I wondered why. A very small leak. I'll fix it once I'm ready to drop the front end of this thing, but it's not an easy repair. It's pretty annoying. So if you're looking to buy a Corvette C6, there's a few things that you need to check out just to make sure this car is free of some of those common issues reported. And let's go through that list one more time. I hope you can find the perfect Corvette C6. These are really, really good cars. There's no major issues with them, just a handful of things that you got to check out, you know, that have been reported as common issues on them, but no major things. Either way, I want to shoot a quick video talking about them. Appreciate you guys watching. If you're a fan of the Corvette C6, if you love Corvettes, if you love fast cars, check out some other videos, man. I appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you guys on the next one.